Here we go. All right. So this is the training is called Voting It's Your Right. Again, it's presented by Peak Parent Center. It is for youth that are either getting ready to be a voting age or young adults that are at voting age. So this is what I really love about this is it's specifically for youth and young adults, which I don't know that we have a lot of trainings that usually go around that. So that's something that I really like about this training. And it's nonpartisan, so that's what we do. We don't take sides. So it's meant to be just to give a wealth of information about rights and what their rights are as they're voting and what they should have knowledge and tools of as they're going into the voting process. The first question or the first slide goes into, do you think that voting is important? I think this is a great question, and I think that it could easily turn into a full conversation in and of itself. I don't know if you guys attended some of you guys are new, but I know, have you heard of Teaching Tuesdays? So the PTAC, they did a training, it was like a series training where they talked about different ways to engage an audience in a webinar. And so what I think, one of the things that they say to do is ask them a question prior to the webinar so you can get the information. And so I think this is one of those questions that you would ask prior to the webinar so that you can get an understanding of how people are feeling about the voting process. And that will give you an idea of how you can kind of alter the training as you go through based on what people are saying. Do they think voting is important? Do they not want to vote? And then kind of get some answers on why, and that would help you kind of prepare for this presentation. This slide is my favorite slide, so I'm not going to go into everything in detail, but I like this slide just because it has 200 years of how voting has changed in America. And if you have not trained with youth before, how you present materials matter. So if you go into this presentation and you start at the beginning at 1776, white men who met property or religious requirements couldn't vote, and then jump to 1856, you're going to lose your youth. They don't really care. So it's kind of like, how do you go into this? And it's like, did you know that in 1776, like the only people who were allowed to vote were white men who owned property and religion? And then it was like, it wasn't until 80 years later that all white men were able to vote, and then 60 more years until women could vote. So it's just kind of like know the information and then just kind of how you present it versus just like reading what's on the screen, which we know like even for adults, like no one wants to just go to a presentation where you're just reading off the screen. So I just love that there's so much information. Oh, is there a question?
Can I interrupt you, Cheryl?
Yeah.
We updated this PowerPoint. And this slide should have an image credit because that is not a peak image. So I can.
It should have a what?
This is not a peak image. It should give the credit for this image.
Yes. And so I was going to say that. So this, I have this, there's two of them that are like that. So this one and there's another one. And in the Google Drive, it has the actual format that has the credit given. So it's not on the slide, but it is in you have that information to say who the credit goes to. So there's two slides that are like that, this one and another one. But thanks, Anne. I had that in my notes to say, and then I forgot. So yeah, so just go through all of these. What's something that I also note when I have done this training in the past is that it doesn't mention the 1990s, which is when the ADA was passed, which also like helps that processing and accessibility and accommodations for voting. So it's like, even in these 200 years, people with disabilities were still not even acknowledged as, voting members. So, sorry. The next couple of slides are just really about what are the acts and laws that were passed. And so you'll go through this, I would say, probably really quickly, because this is another place where you might lose a lot of youth if you just go into, well, this act and this act and this act, but it's also really important to note how the laws have changed with the acts to give access to people with disabilities to vote. So we'll go through a couple of, so you can just go through these slides and ask and just kind of talk about the voting, what they are. This document is blurry. This is a Peak created document, but in the PDF format, it is very clear. Just on this presentation is really blurry. I'm not sure why that is. And do you know if it's a fillable PDF? Because I know this is really specific. Some of these are really specific to Colorado and give Colorado websites.
Unfortunately, I don't think it's a fillable PDF.
Okay.
So it's just, and this is one that we had issues because it was created in Canva years ago and stuff, but I mean, you can edit. And we also have a version where we added a couple of things because there's some questions at the end, and to increase accessibility, we sort of previewed the questions at the beginning and then added a little note on the slides that would have questions related to them. So I don't know if you have that one, but I can share you that one as well. But anyway, we can, do you have the PDF?
I don't have it up. Well, I have the PDF though.
But
Actually,
yeah,
I do.
so I mean, if anyone has Acrobat Pro, you can try and edit it, but
Hold on.
the version we have is not billable.
Yeah. Okay. But I would say I do have it, the Acrobat Pro, to make changes. So if this, and because we have voting right up in November, if this is something you guys like, hey, we want to do this for our youth, like I'm more than happy to add the information where needed so that you guys have the materials you need to do this presentation in the upcoming months. So I'm more than happy to do that for you guys. But this, oh, let me go back because I didn't really talk about this document. So this document just talks about the rights, what the law is, identification that you may need, and not just having a driver's license, but what other IDs would be acceptable to take in while you're going to vote. Access, saying that the buildings must be architecturally accessible, they must have accessible parking, and if they feel like they have to have the right machines, at least one accessible machine that people are able to utilize, and then how to let the polling workers know if they need something more accessible. There's alternate ballots, and they can also have assistance for people to help them with voting. So that's all kind of what this document says. And then again, at the end, if you feel like your rights have been violated, call or contact disability law. So you would put what that email or phone number would be for your particular state. Again, this is more the ADA, and then the what is it, Help Americans Voting Act. This is another infographic. This is the other infographic that is cut off with who the credit is, because this is not a Peak created resource. But again, this is a Google Doc that you guys can have access to. This more like describes the technology that has shifted throughout the years and how the machines have gotten better. When I did this presentation, I focused on the last two dates, which was 1990 and 2002, because those were the two dates that weren't on that first infographic that really pushed people with disabilities to have the ability to vote and have those accessibility needs met. Again, this is another document that you guys will have. This one is blurry too, but it's just like how to register to vote. So it just asks different questions. If you answer yes, then are you registered to vote? If you're not sure, takes you to places where you can check that you're registered to vote. If you are registered to vote, tells you where you could turn in your ballot or when you have to have it turned in. Again, this is another document that if it's something that you guys want to use in the next couple of weeks to do a presentation, I'm happy to edit for you with the information that you need for your centers. And then there's questions. And then a website that you can check so this would be a good, if you do an in-person event, I don't know if you guys are doing those yet, and it might not be for the upcoming months, but if you do an in-person event, this would be a cool way to have extra laptops and tell people like, not only are you going to get a voting training, but we're going to help you register to vote here today online. So having them bring the materials they need and then going to the website and having them register, that'd be like a cool kind of interactive exercise to actually get them that experience and have that set up for them in advance. I don't know that it would be as easy if you did it virtually, not being able to have access to what everyone is looking at, but at least they have the website to go to and have someone support to help them get that taken care of. And then waterfall question time. Are you guys familiar with the waterfall process? So you ask a question and you have everyone type their answers in, but they don't hit send until you say hit send. And so at that time, all the answers come into the chat at the same time. So it's kind of like a waterfall of information coming in. So then you go through those rules of telling them that don't hit send yet, which is the hardest part, because when you type in, you automatically like hit enter. And so it starts falling. So you want to like, don't hit enter yet, wait till the end. And then the questions is, why is it important for you to vote? So that's one of the first waterfall questions. So it can be personal or a reason that we've talked about already. Having them put that into the chat would be a great time for a conversation. And the next question is, what's an issue that's important to you? And I go back and forth with this question because I feel like this could be, depending on how people answer, it could be very controversial. And so I put an alternate question in here. When I did this presentation a couple of years ago, I talked about having support like right before the voting happens. So it's like you want to do your research, you want to identify what your issues, the issues are that you're fighting for, your values, your beliefs, and make a list. And then when you get your book in the mail, in my family, we have a voting party. So we get snacks, we get drinks, we grab our books, we grab our laptops, and we sit down and we research all the people, all the things that are changing that we have the ability to vote for. And so that helps my sister who has cerebral palsy. She has the ability to read, but not necessarily to comprehend. So we sit down with her and answer all the questions. I try to do so in a way where I'm not sharing my opinion. And sometimes she'll vote opposite the way I do. And I'm like, you can absolutely do that. So it's just an opportunity for her to actually understand what she's voting for. So we call it a voting party, and we do it every time the season comes around, which is a lot of fun. So that's something that we could add. I put this in the slide notes. I put that write down your issues. Who's a person that can support you when you're doing your voting to help you kind of understand what's going on, what the issues are, and what your concerns are. So that may be another question that you want to ask if you feel like this question could end up being a little more controversial. And then we have trivia. So then we ask them questions about what the presentation was. So in what ways are you able to vote? For this one, it'd be all of the above. And then which of these voting rights is incorrect? And this one can be a little tricky. You have to do it according to your state. So B is polling centers are not required to ask you for a form of identification. And in Colorado, you do have to have a form of identification. In California, you do not. So this answer, so you might have to pick another answer that is incorrect, because otherwise you're like, well, all these answers are correct and that doesn't make sense. So this is Colorado specific. So. And then just more information of where they can learn more. I also put in this, in the presentation notes, I put a link that you could follow if you don't know what your rules are for identification in your state, that lists all the states on what identify, because some of them are stricter where it has to be a photo ID. Colorado requires an ID, but it doesn't have to be a photo ID. And then, like I said, California doesn't require an ID. So it just kind of tells you what specifically your state is looking for if you don't know what that is. And then casting your votes. And so this is the end of this presentation. What I did when I did it a couple years ago, we had mock voting. So we did two different ones. One we did for snacks. So we picked out a healthy snack and a not so healthy snack. And then we talked about the benefits of having either snack, and then they voted, and whatever the majority chose, that's the snack that they were able to eat at the end of the night. A couple of years ago, we did one where we talked about video games. Should video games be banned or not? And so my coworker and I both spoke on opposite sides of the issue and had the youth vote. And then we had a discussion about that. So there's a lot of different things you can do just to engage with the youth, make it more interactive and fun. That's kind of what I have for this. Any questions? Any thoughts? What do you think?
I think it's great, Sherelle. We just, Arizona Council on Law did a little video on, there's some agencies that are coming to your home and helping people with disabilities how to vote. So there's a lot of talk around this. I think it's perfect timing, and it's pretty great. And every state's doing it a little different, but there's a resource out there, I believe, for just about all of us.
Yeah. Have you guys done voting trainings at your sites before? Is this something new, or is it something you've done before? No.
There's a couple other agencies in Arizona that are doing it, but I haven't seen it done like this before.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if PHP is doing them, but I know that the CCA program, the hub does have information on voting.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, so that's what I have for that presentation. And again, we'll send it to you, Ceci, if we could. I'd like to get this sent to them within the next week, so before next Thursday, so that way if it's something that they do want to present and use, if they want to make changes to any of the documentations, they can let us know so that we can help prepare them for that. So that way you guys have the information. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's not a lot of people here, but I do have some updates, Ceci, if I can jump in and kind of let you guys know what's coming up.
Yeah, let's do that.
So next Tuesday, we're doing a discussion forum where we did a focus group locally of youth. We had about 22 youth. We asked them questions around like, what do you want for transition resources? I know that for some of you guys that are new, our vision for this project was to bring the youth voice, because we know a lot of parent centers, the information is from parents to parents. And I was like, how are we doing transition work if we're not asking the youth what they want? This is, information for them. So our push has been really to find out what the youth are looking for in terms of resources, and our project will work around what they're asking for to produce those resources. So we had two goals. One was to do a youth focus group, and the other one was to create a youth advisory community. So we did the youth focus group in August. We had like 22 youth, which is a small sample size, and we're aware of that. We want to share those results. And we'll also share the results of an impact survey that was done in Missouri. And they were able to interview 621 youth nationwide and over 100 parents. And so what I want to do is share those surveys results with you guys and really have a discussion around what does that look like for parent centers, moving forward, and what does that look like for this project in year 3? What kind of resources would you want now hearing this information? What can we do to help kind of use these survey results, or do we not need to do anything? So just kind of getting your take on what that looks like. So that would be our training next, or our discussion next Tuesday at 1 o'clock. I don't know, Carly, I'm assuming you don't have that. And so Louisa and Wendy, I want to make sure that you guys, if that's something you're interested in or sending a staff, that you guys have that information so you can come. What else is on my list?
The youth advisory community, you want me
Yeah.
to speak a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, one of the projects that we were doing is that we wanted to build a youth advisory community within this region, and we have 6 candidates, I believe, Sherelle, from around the state. We shared the application process, and so they are getting started on training, and the idea is that they will come to these community of practice, the Project Power community of practice, and share with us some of their thoughts. And it's kind of neat because I believe we have someone from Nevada, someone from Utah, someone from Arizona, Colorado, and did we get a California candidate?
But we don't have Nevada, we have California. So 2 Colorado, Arizona, Utah, and California.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so
Yeah.
they are getting started, and they're kind of they're working with a group here in Arizona called Diversibility Incorporated. They're helping them kind of get the understanding of what we are asking of them, that their voice is important and what a PTI really is. And so they're going to come and share some of their thoughts with us, hopefully the end of this year, or maybe next year.
Yep.
So stay tuned for that,
Yeah.
for the youth advisory community.
Yeah. We're also working on getting someone to do a training on universal design for learning. I don't know how familiar you guys are with that, but there's a professor from our university here in Colorado who has done years of it with her staff and with youth. And so I've shared with her resources that the other centers have shared from their mini grants. And so she's creating a training based off of that. And so she'll do a 1-hour training that for the whole group. And then we're going to contract with her to do individual sessions with centers who are interested in learning specifically for like content that they're working on to increase the capacity and accessibility of the youth and adults that you're training. So if that's something you're interested in, that's something that would be paid through Project Power, to have her come one-on-one and meet with you or your center to discuss the materials that you guys are putting out. So that training won't be until November, like the big training, and then in after the new year, that's when we would start scheduling those one-on-one sessions. So there will be more to come on that. And then in October, Anne, you want to talk about your webinar coming up?
I don't know if it's mine. In October, we have a webinar that is focused on using the IEP as a bridge to achieving employment goals. And originally we wanted to kind of have it be more on blending and braiding funds, but it's sort of, that's part of it, but we're focusing more on just using the IEP with that goal in mind. And we'll have a parent and an educator and someone. So it's a Colorado model that they've presented at several places, but it's relevant for any IEP.
Yeah. So, yep, that will come up October, Tuesday, the 11th. So again, if you have not been linked to that, you will be linked to that and have the information. So that's something that you can attend. So a lot of good stuff coming up. I'm excited. And then we also, actually, I shouldn't have stopped staring at my screen. We are doing a very soft launch of our transition webpage. It is not compared to what California is doing, but this is, we're getting ready to switch platforms. Let me find out, I lost it. Give me a second. We're getting ready to switch platforms. So we did something that we could just launch right now. And then in the new year, when we switch over to WordPress, we'll put more details, but this is kind of the webpage that is for parent centers. So this is the direct help TA technical assistant. So this would have a list of who could contact. So Anne, and then we'll have a list of all of our community practices. So if you miss one, you're able to watch the recording from here. Resources for parent centers. So right now we have our Take Charge and Life Launch materials. Again, like our voting webinar, these are materials that you guys can have to do presentations at your center. We will also add all of the Region D2 presentations from California. And I think last week or last month, we did one from assistive technology from a California center task. And so all those would be here for you guys to utilize those resources. So I know I'm talking about, I'm gonna send you a Google Doc and you're like, that's gonna get lost. That link is gonna get lost. So now you'll have this website that you can go to that will have all of that information. Then we have resources for youth and families. So this is just, again, different resources for them. And then once we get our youth advisory community up, like they're really going to take charge of kind of updating this page and what resources that they're looking for. I'd highly recommend taking a look at this video if you haven't. We did an interview with some youth over the summer, and they are a good group. They'll keep you laughing and just kind of talking about their experience and just kind of like their friendship over the last 10 years. And then any upcoming events. So all of our community practice events that are coming up will be here. All you have to do is click on it and it will take you to the site. Any upcoming events. So the webinar that we're doing in October is here. And then we'll do one resource a month to share with you guys. So right now it's an assistive technology fact sheet that we created. So all of this is for you guys to utilize, share with families. And it's, yeah, so the more we know about what your needs are and what you want, the more that website will be catered to what you're looking for.
Can you put that link in the chat?
Yes.
Thank you.
There you go. All right. I don't have any other updates. That was a long